Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Tango Banter. I'm Yelizaveta, and I'm excited. Today is a big day for me. It's a kind of a big week as well. I am starting the 6-week musicality training today. So those of you who've been listening to me talk about it and seeing my posts, if you're curious about it and if you might want to join, it's not too late. Just check out the link in the show notes. Would love to have you. Also, I am traveling this week. This coming weekend, I will be dancing at La Entrega. It's my first time dancing on the East Coast. So this is a marathon in New York. And I'm really looking forward to it. If some of you out there listening will be at the event, make sure you come by and say hello. Would love to connect with you in the physical world. So recently I was in Texas visiting my mom and my sister, and the topic for this episode came to me during that visit in the most unexpected and surprising place. I suggested an idea to my sister to spend Saturday morning at the Arboretum in Dallas. And it was a good idea. It was me and my sister, my mom, and my sister's son, the four of us. What was a challenging aspect of this idea is that it's still ridiculously hot in Texas. It was so hot that just standing in the shade still requires you to sweat a bit. And my mother is a little bit limited in her movement range, so we had to get a wheelchair. And my sister recently went through some minor foot surgery. So it was, I guess I decided it was on me to handle the wheelchair situation. And for about 2 hours, I basically was pushing my mother in a wheelchair. And it was not easy. It was probably the heaviest load I've had to push for a long period of time. So it doesn't necessarily indicate anything about my strength, right? Because, it may be, some people might be fine with pushing a wheelchair. You might have practice at it, but it was my first time, and I was an amateur. And as I was pushing the wheelchair in this heat, there were times where my body felt like almost parallel to the ground, because I had to push and give all of my weight to keep the wheelchair from rolling back. And within that context, I just sort of had this mindset like, look, there's no choice. This is what's available, and you're gonna do this. You're gonna make it, and you're gonna do this without hurting yourself. And so I was able to do it, and we had a very good time, and we'll do it again and this time I'll be more prepared. But what I appreciated about the experience, even though it was very uncomfortable and difficult, was that I was aware that my success in this situation, and I'm talking about the physical exertion and survival of this process, really was the result of my practice and my obsession and complete nerding out on everything to do with body mechanics and constantly aiming to improve the functioning of my body in different ways. I thought it's situations like this, when we are physically challenged and we are required to do something that's out of the ordinary, that's when our practice pays off. It seems that it's not like every day that I get up and I do my yoga practice, I say to myself, I need to be able to push this much weight over this much distance, or I need to be able to do X, Y, and Z, and that's what I'm training for. I mean, I know some people train like that. I don't. I just practice. I just practice and practice. And to me, practice is this ongoing process of paying attention, refining the attention on the body. And because of that, when push came to shove, I had the skills to help me to do something without injuring myself and doing it for a long time. So I was very grateful for that. I was very grateful that I was ready for it, even though it's not something I had on my mind that I needed to be able to do. But also the other skill set that I thought really helped me, because I was thinking to myself, like, what were the body mechanics that I really was using, and what are the muscles that I'm using to do this, and what is hard about this, and what is my core doing, and how is my heart rate? Like, I'm kind of questioning that, and I realized that tango very much is a part of that journey. That tango, on a very mechanical level, is about the skill of negotiating space with another body and learning to use your own weight, use gravity, harness gravity to move your body in certain ways. And in tango, we get to develop this really high level of sensitivity and proprioception, and it's, neurologically is very sophisticated. It's a very sophisticated skill. And even though pushing a wheelchair might not feel like tango, I'm sure it didn't feel like tango to me at the moment, I knew I could feel that some of the immediate, spontaneous decisions I was making about how to move, how to turn corners, how to use my weight, how to make it easier on myself, how to use what I had available to me in that moment physically to make it all work better. That was very much tango. Very much tango. And so I decided to do an episode on practice, on what it means to have a practice, how to practice, how to choose a practice partner. What are you looking for when you're looking for a practice partner? So this is specifically for tango. And, as I started making notes about this episode, I was like, oh my God, I have so much to say. So I actually am going to dedicate this whole month to the discussion of practice. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about what I consider to be the meaning of practice and the goal of that process, and how it should feel according to what I believe. And then the rest of the month, we'll continue with that theme of practice and talk about choosing a practice partner and how to do that, how to find a good practice partner for yourself, what sorts of things to consider for your practice time in tango based on your learning skills, your learning abilities, your experience. And then also just some of the do's and don'ts of practicing with another person. I'm, I guess, lucky to say that everything in that episode is going to be shared from my personal experience of some of the worst and the best decisions I've made as a practitioner of tango. So to jump into this concept of practice, I want to first acknowledge that most people agree that practice is important. I think whether you do tango or yoga or tai chi or meditation, everyone is going to say practice is important. But what is it exactly that you practice? That is where there's some variety. There's some different choices you have. And I think a good place to start, I suggest, is to first distinguish for yourself whether you are a dancer who wants to be perhaps a performance dancer. So you want to be on stage and you want to perform, or whether your ambition is more towards social tango. So if you are a performance track dancer and you really have an ambition to perfect this aesthetically specific thing called tango, you want to have that certain look and achieve a certain dynamic, then your practice time will be scripted according to those ambitions. And so a lot of times when I hear people talk about practice, it's in the context of people practicing choreography, practicing different movements, sequences, and things like that. I think that it's natural for the rest of us, the social dancers, to look at that and say, oh, well, this is what I should be doing. And I've known and I've worked with different dancers who basically do that. They practice different sequencing, and whatever is not naturally part of their dance, that's what they're working out. So it's a lot of repetition over and over of the same thing, and perhaps there's this attachment to the idea of the 10,000 hours, or the 10,000 times. So it's like the more you practice this thing, the better you know it. And when I've worked with leaders in particular, most of the time I experienced this aim of honing a movement over and over so that it becomes more automatic. Sometimes it is more about musicality, constructing sequences to certain types of musicality or studying a song, but that's pretty rare. For the most part, if I were to get together with someone to practice, it was typically because they wanted to practice sequences and movements and combinations. Unfortunately for me, I had to come to accept the fact that I really hate that kind of practice. I really dislike repetition. I do not like drills, which drills are, I think I didn't mention this before, but sometimes drills are a big part of practice, drilling some sort of mechanic. And I just don't, I know it's good for you, you know, I'm not arguing that. It's one of those things that I know I should be doing, but if I had the choice, I kind of don't want to do. And, you know, I am aware that I'm not alone on this. I know. In fact, I would guess that most dancers probably are like me and they don't like to drill and repeat. So I can force myself to do it, but at the end of the day, when it comes to motivation, if I know that my practice is going to be a bunch of drills, I'm not going to be looking forward to it. And I pay attention to that because with things like practice, there has to be an element in there that you enjoy, that you look forward to. Otherwise, it's not going to be long lasting. It's just not going to last. So at some point, I was in a relationship with a dancer who was also my practice partner, and I've referred to him before. And our relationship on the romantic side developed at the same time as our relationship in our tango practice side. And there was a lot of struggle there, and it's a very difficult thing to do. If I were to advise someone before they do it, I would say do not do that. Do not date your practice partner or practice with your romantic partner. Just to be safe, because it's a very difficult dynamic to deal with. And in addition to this tension of the romantic side and this practice side kind of butting heads, there was this clash between us in terms of what we liked to practice and what we wanted to practice. And it was very clear to me that the way he was thinking about tango and how he perceived progress and what needs to happen to get better was in complete opposite to me. Now, I did not know at the time what it was that I wanted. I just knew that it wasn't that. And the way I knew is that I dreaded practice. And every time, I kid you not, every time we had a fight. Every single time. And you ladies out there, you know what I'm talking about. I'm going to be honest here. Sometimes you get into these tango relationships with the practice partner, and it's very one-sided, and it feels like you cannot speak for yourself or express yourself, and you're being told what to do and what not to do, and that you're wrong. And to my knowledge, at this point, most of the time that happens between a male leader and a female follower, that kind of dynamic. Now, I hope that that's changing, and I hope that there's more empowered relationships where both people are speaking equally. And I want to talk more about this in the episode where I'll explore what it means to have a good practice partner. But for now, I just want to say it was the worst practice partner experience ever in every way. And what I felt was this total disconnection from what I really wanted and a demand to accept what the other person was dictating. And I had no way out. I felt like there was so much mental blockage and so much wrapped up in it that it was a really torturous experience. So it made practice a very dangerous, very upsetting, harmful, traumatic experience. And now, in contrast, I am lucky to say that I believe I have the best practice partner experience. And it's interesting to reflect on why that is, because I haven't changed. I still am terrible at drilling and repetition. I just get bored. Unless I feel like I'm really in the moment, really dancing and connecting with the song and like that tango high, like I want that. I want that all the time. I don't want to practice to get it. I just want to be there, right? And that's kind of how I am. So I haven't changed, but now my practice time is this incredibly rich, fun, exploratory, exciting time with another person who is a collaborator, somebody who is just as passionate and committed to their journey. And it is the kind of practice dynamic that I felt was possible back then, a few years prior when I was stuck in this other really opposite dark place when it comes to practice. So I knew that there was something different, and now I have that, and so it's not that I've changed, but I have accepted and become really clear about what is it that I want to practice and how do I want to feel and what are my non-negotiables and what is it that I'm actually after. So I've done that work of clarifying for myself, and I think as a result of that work, I have been able to sustain a fruitful, fun practice relationship with someone. And it's very special. It's very special. I have to say, I've met dancers who were so unhappy without a practice partner, and there's this longing to find someone who will work with you, who can give you that extra time and with whom you can have a good connection. It's very special. And then to be able to sustain it and to have a good strategy working relationship, it's really great. I definitely think it's worthwhile to look for that, those of you who are interested in that. And don't think that, some people are like, oh, I can't find a practice partner. There must be something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. There's something I'm not giving or I don't have enough of. And that's just not true. Okay? It has nothing to do with you. It has more to do with you deciding what it is you want and really being clear about it. So we'll talk about more of that in the next episodes. So I'm sure at this point you're wondering if this practice now is opposite from before. What does it consist of if it's not vocabulary and drills and things like that. And I gotta say, the way I have arrived at this mode of practice took a long time without me really realizing that I was heading towards some sort of a structured strategy. Because when I split up with my former partner and I kind of decided that I don't care to practice in this mode, this way. It's not natural to me. I don't like drills. And at that time, that's all I knew that was possible. So I had to accept a certain level of failure. I had this fear that if I don't practice, I'm not going to get better. And so in my mind, like, you have to practice, otherwise you won't get better. You have to practice. And so eventually I was like, you know what? Fine. I don't care to get better. I'm just going to stay at this level, which, I hear a lot of criticism from people who are like, oh, so-and-so is not practicing. They're just staying at the same level. And just that alone deserves its own episode, because I have a lot of bones to pick with that statement. But I had to accept the failure, my own failure. I was like, you know what? I'm not meant for this. I can't do this. I can't practice. So I'm just not going to. And for a while, I didn't. But then it just so happened that I decided I wanted to just dance extra. And there was, a person in my community with whom I danced really well. And I was just like, do you want to just get together and dance? And so we did. And that's basically where it all started, is on a regular basis, we just got together to dance. And sometimes we danced a lot. Other times we danced very little because we also really liked talking. So it was fun. It wasn't boring, and there was no drills. It was just dancing. And then as we did more and more of that, in between those times, sometimes I would see a video and I'd be like, oh, this move, that's cool. I want to try that next time. Or maybe I heard a song that I'd be like, oh, I wonder if this song is good to dance to. I want to try that. So then the next time we would meet, there would be something else I wanted to add to that, to our time together, and experiment with something. But really the ground underneath all of that was always just this intention to get together for dancing. And so my favorite thing really is just to push play on whatever it is that I have on my Spotify playlist and just start dancing. And for the most part, it really is that casual. Sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's 3 hours. And what started happening is that I got better. I got so much better, so much more quickly. Now, I got better in specific ways that were important to me. I didn't get better at perhaps vocabulary and sequencing, because that's not something that I focus a lot on. But what's important to me, like musicality, concepts of, really expressing the texture of the songs and studying different orchestras and showing the differences between orchestras, being able to show the structure of the song, like those are the things that I like to explore. Those things got better because I was having this really great, uninterrupted time focused on just my partner and just dancing with her. And in fact, I noticed this really interesting phenomenon that we've now been practicing for, I don't know, a year maybe. And frequently we'll start dancing and right away I just feel that tangasm, that tango euphoria. Like it's, I know her movements so well and she knows my movements so well, which is like, that's the gold mine right there. So I have this immediate experience of the best level of tango that I would want to experience. So much so that then when I go to the milonga, I actually feel less creative. Frequently, I'll notice my movement and my vocabulary will be a lot more advanced and creative and interesting at home alone with my partner than at the milonga, which I think is a fascinating aspect of practice and understanding more of the neurological and physical aspects of your brain and how we learn. Because a lot of people beat themselves up for not remembering sequences and not being able to retain vocabulary in their brain. But I actually think that's just the way our brains work. We're not meant to be able to retain this information right away. And I think most of the tango teaching modality needs to adjust, actually, so that we're more successful at retaining that information. Because, no matter how much I try, like, I've at some point stopped going to group classes or big workshops, because I would learn the sequence in class and then forget it immediately. So my observation has been that a lot of times when I dance at home in this mode of just dancing, not thinking about any kind of agenda, just dancing and having fun, that is actually a more satisfying experience a lot of times than at the milonga, which sort of turns the whole notion of practice. Instead of practicing to have fun at the milonga, practicing to dance well at the milonga, it's like we can just dance well in the practice and let the milonga be what it is, right? Because it's kind of like, I guess it's a hit or miss. Sometimes we have fun, sometimes we don't, and there's this randomness to it. But to me, the big insight is that I got better. And it's like, not better in this way of like that there is a perfection out there to reach for, but I got better from my own perspective in things that matter to me, like musicality, like body mechanics, balance, things like that. I got better because I was having fun and I was enjoying myself. So I was practicing that. That's the practice. The practice is just practice dancing, practice being in the zone, practice being in the music, whatever the music might be, challenging that part of yourself, putting on a song that's not tango and has really weird rhythms, and just practicing connecting to that and seeing what you come up with. Those kinds of things are very exciting to me. And that, I feel, is what has given me the fuel and the excitement to continuously meet every week to do more. Now, the other thing that happens for me is that I've noticed that because I am just playing and I'm allowing myself to mess up and be funny and dance to songs that don't really work for tango and kind of experiment, that as a byproduct of that, I'm also getting better in my balance, in my mechanics, in my proprioception, like all of those skills that I was hinting at way at the beginning of this episode when I was talking about the skills that I was using to push my mom up in the wheelchair. Like, those are all the skills that are being honed when we're in that state of just dancing and responding and being present. And it's like, that's what we're perfecting. That's what we're getting better. So those people who might say, well, you're not actually practicing. That's not really practice. You need, X, Y, and Z, and you need to achieve this many enrosques in a minute. Whatever, like, people can think whatever about whatever. So there's many definitions of practice, but I guess my point is here that having fun and being in the zone should not necessarily be overlooked as something that's not practice. You know, if it's fun for you to practice drills and to do repetition, great. But if it's not, then practice the other thing that you really enjoy, which my guess would be that you really enjoy dancing. You really enjoy listening to good music and just being able to be free to move. So when you choose to follow that little crumb trail into yourself and ask yourself, like, do I like this or do I like this? Do I want to do this or do I want to do that? Then you will, over time, get to know yourself and give yourself what you need to have that solid foundation for practicing, that you have a good partner and you have the consistency of it, and you will see yourself getting better. So to wrap this up and kind of bring it all together, we talked today about the fact that practice is not just one-sided, that it's just this one way that you need to yearn for the 10,000 hour mark and the 10,000 times mark and its repetition, that there's different types of experiences in practice that you can have, and that will be based on whether you're going to be aiming for the professional slash performative track, or you're more in the social dance category, and maybe it's not so important for you to drill and get more and more vocabulary under your belt, because eventually, like, you know, how many moves do you really need to have fun on the dance floor? In my mind, 3. Honestly, you can make it work with 3 moves. If you want me to prove it to you, I will. It's not like you don't need that much, right? For the social dance floor. And so when you have this awareness of where you want to go, then you want to admit to yourself, like, what kind of practice you like, what kind of practice you don't like. Because ultimately, based on my own experience, and this is what I want you to take away from this episode, is how do you know if the practice that you're doing is right for you? And I think you can assess that very easily by observing how you feel after your practice and how you feel before your practice. But after your practice is more important. To me, you should feel good about your dancing after your practice. You should feel elated. You should feel excited. It should be fun. And you should feel like you're really looking forward to it. And your body should be happy. Now, I know there's some people who are like, no pain, no gain, and you really love beating your body into a pulp and then resurrecting in the next few days. And, you know, I can relate to that. I had my days of CrossFit 5 days a week at 6 a.m. for months and months. Yeah, so I've done that. I know that feeling. But now, if I feel that way, I kind of think that I just didn't do the right practice for my body. You know, I don't like my body feeling beat up. I want to feel energized, and I want to feel like there is more energy after the practice rather than that there's less. So that's just me, but I would encourage you to take this insight and chew on it and see how it lands with you, and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your own experience with practice partners or lack of practice partners or looking for practice partners. It's something that's come up quite a bit for me. As a teacher, hearing people ask for practice partners, as well as just talking to other dancers in the community. So you can reach me anywhere on the interwebs. My handle is I'm So Tango. So hit me up on social media, or you can email me at connect@imsotango.com. And again, as I wrap this up, I invite you to check out my musicality training that's starting today. And you will get a lot of awesome practice tools from this training. So I think if you are in a place where you're looking for inspiration of what things to practice, and maybe you don't have a practice partner, but you want to do things on your own, you're interested in continuing your growth as a dancer, even without a partner, you really should check out this training, because you'll get a lot of really cool exercises and musicality prompts to develop as a dancer with or without a partner. And lastly, I will be at La Entrega in New York. Please come by, say hello if you're there. And I look forward to continuing this discussion next week at the next Tango Banter. Have a great day. Ciao.